Over the past decades, we have seen clubs like Arsenal, Juventus, and AC Milan win their respective leagues without losing a single game. Then we saw clubs like FC Barcelona, Manchester United, and Bayern Munich win the Champions League also without losing a single game. But one club has been able to win their league and the Champions League undefeated. And as you can tell by the title of this video, we're going to do a deep dive at the unreal season Ajax had during the 1994 and 1995 campaign, an accomplishment that has never happened before or repeated since. This legendary Ajax squad consisted of some of the most exciting and generational players that will be future household names. From the players to the coaching staff, they were all working towards a single goal, which was to inscribe their names in football history. But guys, I will raise you this question: how did Ajax achieve this incredible feat and become super invincibles? With that being said, guys, welcome back to the pitch. In today's video, we're looking at the players, the managers, and the events that are responsible for this incredible achievement. If you enjoy content like this, feel free to drop a like and subscribe, as it immensely helps out the channel. And guys, a quick heads up, before the 1992 and 1993 campaign, the Champions League was referred to as the European Cup. So until we reach that point in the video, I will be referring to it as the European Cup. Anyways, let's dive in. To get a better perspective in the 1994 and 1995 Ajax season, we must go back to a couple years prior to see what events occurred that revolutionized Ajax and football itself. In the late 1960s and early 70s, the Dutch side were singly responsible for the biggest revolution in football history. This revolution would be led by three men and their supporting cast. Those three men were Rinus Michels, the manager, who had an intense mindset when it came to the game and was the architect behind the tactic of total football. There's more in-depth information on how the mechanics of total football fell into play, but for the sake of this video, total football in simple terms meant that any player could play any position at any time on the pitch. This tactic allowed the other two men and the supporting cast to put it in full effect. One was the very well known Johan Cruyff, who would be described as the on-field orchestrator of total football because he could play any position on the pitch. Cruyff possessed the agility of a winger, the strength of a midfielder, and was superb in the goal area. All these skills helped Cruyff cement his name in football history. And the second was Johan Neeskens, a player people seem to forget when discussing the topic of Ajax and total football. Neeskens was the body of total football while Cruyff controlled the soul. Neeskens was a gladiator because of his strong character and his relentlessness on the pitch. And guys, if you want a video that primarily focuses on the career of Johan Neeskens, drop it in the comment section down below to let me know. Anyways, now that we have the three heads of the table out the way, let's get into how much success Ajax would find. Michels would be appointed manager of the club in 1965. Keep in mind that before that change, Ajax had not won the Dutch league title in 5 years. But once Michels employed total football, the trophies came pouring in. When you look back at history, it shows that change was looming in the shadows of Amsterdam. For example, Ajax would win the Eredivisie title 4 times in the 5 years since Michels was appointed manager. Plus, a young Cruyff was transforming football because in those years, he would be top scorer in the league every single season up until he left the club. And he would win a couple awards down the road. But the big bang that showed Ajax was a force to be reckoned with is when they would reach the European Cup finals in 1969. Though they suffered a 4-1 defeat against AC Milan in the finals, that tournament showed that Ajax was en route to conquer Europe, which they did in fabulous fashion, I might add. The hunt to take over Europe would officially start in the 1970-1971 season, when Ajax would acquire Johan Neeskens, and by the end of the 71 season, Ajax would win a treble, which consisted of the Eredivisie title, the KNVB Cup, and the European Cup. However, that same season, Rinus Michels, the man who transformed football and Ajax, would make his move to Barcelona after the European Cup win. An interview was conducted on why he left. He said, "I have achieved everything that I could. It's impossible to do better." But guys, this was far from the truth, because the team that he helped build would make themselves a dynasty in the next 2 years because they continued to win under the new manager Stefan Kovacs, who was well known for his managing years in Romania. But once he made his move to Amsterdam, he was unheard of, and at the time, Ajax was looking for a very cheap manager, so Kovacs got the position. When it came to the outcome of his years in Amsterdam, Kovacs had spent 2 glorious years with the club. Kovacs would take the title with such ease, and it was under him that some might say Ajax played their best football yet. Players have come out and said that Kovacs gave them greater freedom than Michels ever prohibited, and the players also considered him as one of the guys instead of just a manager, because one day Kovacs just sat down, played a game of cards, drank and laughed with the guys, which allowed the team to blossom in the following years. However, the Ajax dynasty had come to a halt after they won won their third European Cup, and soon after Cruyff departed to join Michel's at Barcelona, Kovacs would leave to manage the French national team, and 2 years later Neskins joined Barca with Michel's and Cruyff. In the end, the club had captured 6 Eredivisie titles, 4 KNVB Cups, won 3 consecutive European Cups, which made them the second team to complete a hat-trick of titles, and went 2 years winning 46 games without a single loss or a draw, something never seen before. Now that Gloria Ajax had reached its final stages, it was time for a new generation of footballers to bring Ajax back to the spotlight. At this point, it's the end of the 70s and Ajax would make headlines after Cruyff returned. Anyhow, his second spell with Ajax wasn't like his first, but fans still got to see him rock the iconic red and white jerseys for 46 games and win 2 league titles before he would depart again in 1983. After a year had passed, Cruyff made his return for his third spell, but this time as a coach with talented youngsters like Marco van Basten, Will Cruyff, Danny Blind, and Frank Rijkaard. With these 4 players on the rise, Ajax would be recognized for cultivating young players that could one day become fan favorites wherever they went. Between 1977 to 1987, Ajax would slightly dominate the domestic stage because they would win another 6 Eredivisie titles, 4 more KNVB Cups in 10 years. Cruyff left once again in 1987 to take over another love of his life, Barcelona, meanwhile leaving his style for the next generation of footballers at Ajax, since Van Basten and Rijkaard left around the same time. After Cruyff Ajax days were up, the club over the next 3 years saw 5 managers, none of which had long-term years with the club. On the flip side, the club did win 2 titles in those 3 years and signed a good number of players leading up to the 1991-1992 season, when the former Ajax player turned manager Louis van Gaal took the helm. Here's a brief overview on the great Louis van Gaal. Van Gaal played around the early 70s and late 80s, so it was no surprise that he is a graduate of total football. When he took over in 1991, Van Gaal was on a mission to perfect it as much as possible. Most fans disliked Van Gaal's coaching style, but they couldn't see the bright future that awaited them at the finish line. The 1991, 1992, and the 1992-1993 squad was just the start of things for Ajax. In those seasons, Dennis Bergkamp, a winger that was a prodigy of the Ajax Academy who was also a prolific goal scorer during the 1990-1991 season because he had scored 25 goals, would continue his fantastic form under Van Gaal, which is why he would capture 2 more scoring titles in those seasons. So you guys can understand just how good Bergkamp was, think about the German soccer player Mesut Ozil, who creates havoc for modern day defenders. Fun fact, at one point in his career, Ozil toppled Europe when it came to assists. Anyways, I think you guys understand how much of a beast Bergkamp was. Let's get back to Ajax. Though Ajax didn't win any titles under Van Gaal in his first 2 seasons, in fact, Ajax only captured their first and only UEFA Cup under Van Gaal's 2 seasons. But change was on the rise since Bergkamp and Wim Jonk, another player who possessed a great set of abilities on the pitch, decided to depart from the club at the end of the 1992-1993 season. Their departure that season was literally a blessing in disguise. Instead of starting completely from scratch, Van Gaal turned his focus to the homebred young talents that were on the youth squad program. The departure would make space for the return of the defensive midfielder Frank Rijkaard, who was now a veteran of the game. Now, the 1993-1994 season was when literally everything fell into place for both Ajax and Van Gaal. From the start in 1991, Van Gaal up until now was working to perfect the tactic of total football. In training practice to the games played, Van Gaal always insisted that the players did things a certain way. Van Gaal held mandatory team sessions, group meals, and made sure the young and bright Ajax stars worked together as a pack when pressing the opposition. Also at the same time, they could fall back to defend them. Van Gaal's tactics weren't flashy like Michel's, Kovacs, and Cruyff, but it got the job done at the end of the day. At the end of that season, Ajax would win their league for the first time in 3 years, won the One Cruyff Shield, and had established a brutal defensive line that consisted of a young Edwin van der Sar, who protected the goalposts, the captain veteran Danny Blind, the De Boer brothers, and the veteran Frank Rijkaard. Had young talented players like Jerry Litmanen and Mark Overmars, who could score if given the opportunity to do so, and other young players like Michael Reiziger, Edgar Davids, Clarence Seedorf, Wenko Kanu, and Patrick Calvert, a player who would be crucial for Ajax the following season. Thus, the stage was set for the 1994-1995 Ajax team that was ready to explode in ways you cannot imagine. Van Gaal's Ajax, which had players that would be the best and the brightest stars in the future, would only suffer one defeat, which was in the KNVB Cup quarterfinals. This young and talented Ajax team became the first Dutch football team to be named Invincibles, since they played 34 games, won 27 games, had 7 draws and no losses. Plus they would score 106 goals and only concede 28. Yes guys, you heard that correctly. This team right here was simply unstoppable. They were all in their youths and had a great set of skills with much flair added to it. And Van Gaal made sure his squad had the toughness and the determination instilled within them. It's important to note that Van Gaal, after years, had finally perfected the tactic of total football into what he envisioned when he took office in 1991. Now the Champions League is when this team showed that they could compete with the best of them. Once things got rolling, they would beat last year's winners AC Milan not once but twice in the group stages, before giving a beatdown to my favorite club Bayern Munich in the semi-finals, which placed them in the finals coincidentally against AC Milan, who came in as favorites to win the tournament since this was Milan's 5th time in the Champions League in 7 years, and they won the league last year. On May 24th, 1995, on the 40th edition of the league, Ajax fans to football fans witnessed a mind-blowing achievement when Van Gaal's Ajax made history after an 18-year-old Patrick Calvet, who came in the game as a substitute, scored this winning goal in the 85th minute to help Ajax win the game. This generation of Ajax footballers were certainly the best players in Europe. They were products of years upon years of work that was started all the way back in 1965. Most of the team did stick around for the following season and even made it to the Champions League finals once again and retained the Eredivisie title, but would lose to another Italian team, Juventus, in a penalty shootout. Over the next couple of years since the bossman rule was enacted, the young players on the squad still in their prime slowly started to leave the club to go to very diverse clubs where they would still find themselves being successful. And Van Gaal, the man behind this team, found his own success once again after departing from the club in 1997. In any case, do you think something similar to this could ever happen again? Leave a comment down below, and I really enjoyed putting this one together. Have a good rest of your day. Peace out, guys.